Hello everybody, CritCrab here with another story. Any introduction I could give would not really do it any justice, so as usual, roll post. But just before we get into that, I want to thank our amazing sponsors, Dungeon Fog. Introducing Dungeon Fog. With the Dungeon Fog Battle Map Editor, you can easily create your own TRPG tabletop maps with just a few simple clicks. In Dungeon Fog, you can draw rooms with intuitive tools, connect them with doors and passages, and decorate your map with props from a library with over 4,000 assets. Heavy on immersion, you can then light it up with custom light sources and dynamic shadows to create atmospheric scenery for a more immersive experience. Short on time? Dungeon Fog has you covered. Help yourself to their massive library of user-generated maps that you can claim and adjust as needed. With that said, the fine folks over at Dungeon Fog offer any and all crabs a whopping 10% off of your annual subscription. Just use code CritCrab at checkout. So after this video, crab walk on over to the link in the description. I'll see you there. CritCrab Nation. This isn't a horror story. It's a fun story for those rainy days when you're sick of cringy and disrespectful players ruining games. Also, I did post this on r/D&D stories, but I specifically wanted to send this to you for a fun read, cause I love your videos. Hey, thanks, that means a lot. Before I begin, I'd like to recommend you stick to starting from the beginning and going to the end. See if you can spot the trick before the reveal. If you skip to the end, it'll spoil the fun. D&D 5e, by the way. I DM for several parties, one of which has 3 players in the campaign. Holden Brissinger, an elf fighter, Yarkiv, a high elf sorcerer, and Lord Farquaad, a dwarf barbarian. They called themselves, wait for it, 2.5 men. Anyways, they just started their adventure and one of them, Holden, was missing on the 3rd session. So the other 2 players decided to go do the quest they already had gotten at the end of the last session. The quest was simple. Find a location they already semi-visited, which was inhabited by spiders, and slay them. They were capturing unsuspecting victims and eating them. Of course, the city wants them gone, so they set off to go find these spiders. Well, they found the location and wanted to search for someone who had gone missing as of late while they were at it. There were cocoons hung from the trees, most up in the branches and some on the ground. The dwarf climbed up the tree, cut one open, not knowing it was actually an egg sac, and a bunch of small spiders came out to attack. He fell out of the tree with these things crawling all over him. It was kind of funny watching the one guy try to slap them off him while the other helplessly slapped away as well. He couldn't use spells or anything because it would hurt his friend. Anyways, they search a bit more carefully, now being more aware and able to discern between the eggs and corpses, and start cutting the corpse-filled ones. It wasn't long until a few spiders came from the treetops to attack them for disturbing their webs. Unfortunately for them, they were butchered by our heroes with ease. As they continued to walk around, they saw what appeared to be a huge spider in one of the trees north of them. They froze in place, it not being aware of their presence as it was feasting on its most recent meal. One of the players attempts to make a stealth check so he can hide, or at least start making his way away from the threat. 2. Oh lord. The sweat dripped from his face as he stepped on a twig. The spider stopped for a moment, froze in place, and it seemed like an eternity before it started getting the munchies again. So he takes another step, this time making sure to avoid the tree branches on the forest floor. 1. Well, after a second failure, and a nat 1 at that, roll initiative. It leaps down from the tree and attacks them. They fight against it, one getting trapped under webbing, getting free, and so on. They managed to win the fight. They were all burned out, and they didn't dare chance sticking around for the night. So they cut their losses. They needed 7 more heads and went for the nearest village, which was to the northeast of them. They get into the town and have some daylight left to spare. The first thing they do is look for a place to stay. Unfortunately, this village had no inn. It was a small, underdeveloped village. They asked a stable master if they could use the stable for shelter. He was a humble man and said sure, so long as they don't bug the livestock. They then decided to explore the village, see if they could buy some things. Maybe there was someone in need of aid for something, so they asked the stable master, "Excuse me, but is there anyone in need of aid in this village? Is there anyone that may need the help of adventurers?" The stable master replies, now that you mention it, there's someone that may need help. A man just on the east side of the village has some farmland, and the soil recently turned sour. Perhaps you can talk with him and do some investigating. They agree, and go to him after buying some items. They buy a shield and something else, not sure what, I forgot. They get to the man. He's a tiefling, a man by the name of Stanner. Seems between his late and elderly years. Farm hillbilly kind of apparel. You get the idea. "Excuse me, sir, but I hear you've been having trouble with your crops. What's going on?" Now, imagine Boomhauer from King of the Hill, just a little less comprehensible. This guy starts talking, is just intelligible enough to understand, and we all start busting out laughing after I voice it out. Every time I try to say something, we are all laughing. We can't help it because it sounds so silly. There is no way I'm going to be able to duplicate what was said, so I'll just write it here. So Stanner goes on saying how his crops are no longer growing. Upon further investigation, using detect magic, the party realizes that there is something magical around this land. Perhaps it was cursed by someone. So they tell him that it seems something magical is causing this, and if he knows anyone that may use magic here. Stanner tells them that he believes that this man who lives over there, points, is responsible. So they pay this man a visit, Vanuath Yeldrin, an elf. He's sitting on a chair on his porch, enjoying the day, and greets them. They ask him if he uses magic, and he says no. They see through his lies, and his demeanor changes. Even his voice changes from a hillbilly accent to a more intellectual accent. He then tells the party that he's after his land. It's rich soil, excellent farmland, so he's trying to run Stanner off his land and purchase it out from under his feet. Vanuath offers the party 100 gold pieces to just walk away and not say another word. Naturally, as heroes would, they refuse. They already hate this guy and they want to kill him, but they aren't entirely foolish. Yet. So the party tries to prove that he's a malicious mage to the townsfolk. It's about 4 p.m. when they walk away from the house, so they had some free time. They go to the stable master and try to bring him over and show him that the mage is evil and is using magic for malicious reasons. They also ask if there's like a mayor or village chief they can speak to. On the way over, he points out the house. When they near Vanuath's house, about 100 feet away or so, the man still sitting on his porch, the stable master suddenly stops in his tracks. "Hey guys, listen, I appreciate your offer, but I completely forgot I have some horseshoes that need to be cleaned by the morning. But get with me tomorrow morning and we'll definitely go." He then shakes their hands and walks off. Okay, was he scared? They look over at the mage, who is using a mage hand to play with a dagger on his wooden armrest for his chair. They go to the village mayor. The townsfolk call him chief. He was wrapping up there and is a humble man as well. He comes with the party to go check on the claim they are making, quite a strong claim at that. At around the same distance away, he stops in his tracks. "Hey guys, while I've never been hunting before and I appreciate the invitation, I forgot I actually have to get some paperwork done by the morning. But get with me around 6 a.m. and we'll go, I promise. Thanks again." He then shakes their hands and walks away. They turn around, look at Vanuath, him playing with his dagger on the armrest using mage hand. One of them recalls what could potentially be happening to the people. It's a spell called Modify Memory, which he's using on the townsfolk. So they conclude they probably can't win this way, glare at his smirking expression as they walk away, defeated. However, they come up with a plan. The next morning, early at around 6 a.m., they decided they will go and kill the bastard. So that's what they attempt to do. At level 2, no less. By the way, the challenge rating for the mage is 6. They wake up, move over to his homestead, and find him sitting out on his porch. One of them walks up, casually walking around a gazebo to distract him, while the other uses a trench to walk up around his flank and sneak up behind him. The mage notices this and waits for him to get closer and make the first move before the party gets up and attacks. Roll initiative. They have a fierce fight. The mage runs into a fenced crop field and casts invisibility. They lose track of him, and he casts another ability. They hear the sound of something on the gazebo. The sound of wood. The sorcerer of the party uses Detect Magic again and sees the invisible mage's aura around him. Note, I know Detect Magic isn't supposed to reveal invisible enemies, just bear with me here. And he shoots at the mage. It works, but the mage is hit. His invisibility wears off. The mage casts some spell on the sorcerer and the sorcerer goes down. The gazebo on fire since he can't climb up the building, which scares the mage off. The mage then uses his movement to get off and prepares some sort of defensive spell. The barbarian runs up to the mage and rolls to hit. Nat 20. Cheers all around as he demolishes the rest of the mage's HP pool. He brings the sorcerer back using a potion of healing, loot, and toss the body into the burning gazebo, letting it collapse on the body over time. The party goes to get the stable master in chief to investigate what had happened. It's about 7 a.m. or so now. They work to extinguish the flames using water in a nearby creek. The party goes inside the house to do some investigating to look for the missing man. They go inside and start sifting around for other items of interest. They come across a few key items which stick out. A quill, an ink bottle, a bag with unknown contents, a potion of some sort, a lantern with a glass circle on the front which emits light well through it, and a book with no title. They open the book and it's blank. The sorcerer goes to take the ink and quill and attempts to write in it. The ink touches the paper and seems to be consumed by the paper, but nothing is written. And the ink is used as he kept trying to write. He looks on the back side of the page, other pages, nothing. So he keeps trying new things. The book must be important, it's magical after all. So they grab the bag and see what's inside it. It's a bunch of coin. A lot actually. They stuff it in their pockets. They also check the potion, putting a drop on the page. Nothing happens, but it simply disappears like the ink did. The sorcerer puts a drop on his tongue, and he felt a bit refreshed through his body. He takes the whole thing to find it was a potion of greater healing. Then, after feeling much better, he goes to his last special item, the lantern. He grabs it and shines it across a page to see some words appear. Huh? One word appears. It. He turns the page. Seems. Turns it again. Nothing. And continues to turn them, as it reads over and over again. Nothing is as it seems. This strikes them as curious. The pages kept going and going and going. It was as if the book had endless paper, and it was perhaps a magical effect the book had. So they take both the items with them and leave the house. Outside, the two villagers finished putting out the fire and were picking away at the wreckage, trying to get to this body underneath. The party went to help them and pulled out the charred remains of what was hardly recognizable as Vanuath Yeldrin. They tell the villagers how he probably was practicing magic in his gazebo and had an accident, killing himself in the process. Rolled deception, and they were successful. The villagers were safe from this mage, they were satisfied with the answer, probably not the smartest people, and they got rid of that smug mage. So they were walking back to the stable and asked the time. I told them it was around 4 p.m., perhaps a little after 4 p.m. They agreed it was time to go get some sleep. Get an early start in the morning. Perfect end to the day. So that's what they do. They get up in the morning and head off to the capital they started at, as it was close to the session end. They got there and they were paying for their stay at the inn. Elf. Wait, I thought I had more money than this. Where did it all go? Dwarf. Yeah, I remember getting platinum. Why don't we have any platinum? Did the program bug or something? We were playing on fantasy grounds. I assured them that they had everything they were supposed to. They immediately said, okay, good. Heh. They go up to their rooms and start checking out XP earned as well as items they... Elf. Wait, I'm missing some things. I'm almost sure of it. Do you have that book? The lantern? Dwarf. No, I don't. Elf. Okay, they definitely bugged out. I tell them that nothing bugged out and I assured them of it. So they sat there, completely confused, unsure of what had happened. It was almost as if they never visited there in the first place. Everything they had was gone. Dwarf. Did the place not exist? And did we get tricked or something? Elf. No, that's not possible. I still have this item I brought when we got here. Dwarf. Oh yeah, and I have this shield. Where the hell did everything else go? So I told them to roll an investigation check. They succeed. Me. You rationalize that the place does in fact exist because you have some items you purchased from there. However, something you recall feels odd. When you went to attack the mage that morning, it was around 7 a.m. when you got the stable master and chief to visit and help dig out the body. You reason it would take at most 2 hours to get the body out, and you realized that the time was around 4 p.m. when you walked away from the house back to the stable. How could this be, you ask yourselves? Now, this is for the reader. Remember when I specified the time as 4 p.m. when they walked away from the mage the first time? Remember how I also specified that they were walking away from the mage at 4 p.m. after they had killed him? Dwarf. Thinking. Elf. That motherfucker! Dwarf. What? Elf. He used modify memory on us! Me. As you realize this, you picture yourselves walking away from the house on that last day after leaving the burnt gazebo, which was never actually destroyed. Nor was he dead. In fact, you were still walking away, making the plan when this spell was cast on you at 4 p.m. Vanuath Yeldrin played with his dagger using Mage Hand as you walked away with that same smug smirk on his face. They immediately blew up, write him up as their mortal enemy, and vowed to kill him for sure next time. They had a great laugh, absolutely loving that twist ending of that session and how fun it was. I told them that if they looked back when they were walking away, they would have literally seen through the illusion at that point, as it was over. Yes, I did roll to see if they would beat the spell. I said it was a test roll, nothing special, just rolled ahead of time to avoid suspicion. And they both failed. So they had to either figure it out on their own or run its course, which they both did, just not in that order. Naturally, I gave them a big wad of XP for going through this and they leveled up. I'm glad they had fun, and I love that I was able to come up with that on the fly for them, making for quite an interesting encounter. TLDR, the party gets fucked up by some spiders, the party goes to a nearby village looking for something different to do. The DM made a bold decision to create an illusionary encounter on the fly which would take up to 2 hours to complete, despite being a new DM. The party was bamboozled, everyone had a great time. Also, it's hard making illusionary creatures just right. It simply worked out just right for us, and I feel lucky. End post. You know, a lot of DMs like to pride themselves on their ability to plan several moves ahead and construct these huge, grand narratives well ahead of time. But in my experience, the moments DMs tend to look back on the most come from hatching and executing a plan on the fly improv style rather than just everything going as planned. But of course, there needs to be balance. If your game is too much improv and too little of any planning or thinking beforehand, you run the risk of your game lacking substance more and more over time. That and the DM relying only on what they come up with on the fly is only going to get more and more exhausting as time goes on. This doesn't even count all of the cool opportunities that will definitely be missed by the DM only being able to ever go off of the first or second reaction to any given event. So, some preparation is required. In my experience, the more preparation you do, the less you need to improv. Now, obviously I'm not saying to obsess over every tiny little detail, and by all means, be ready for all of your plans to go directly out the window, but a reasonable amount of planning will go a long way to improving your game. Anyways, thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please do leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more stories just like this one. Till next time.